Welcome to Aircrew Logbook, a modern digital pilot logbook designed for accuracy, flexibility, and efficiency. It brings together powerful automation, detailed reporting, and a wide range of tools to support your flight operations. Aircrew Logbook runs on all modern Apple devices, iPhone, iPad, and Mac, with Apple Silicon, on iOS 18 and later. The interface works in both portrait and landscape, supports light and dark mode, and adapts its layout on larger screens like iPad and Mac, while keeping all features fully available on every device. Your entries sync securely to a robust cloud backend, ensuring your data stays consistent and up-to-date across your devices. In this tutorial, we'll go through the app's features in depth. The app is always improving, so what you see here may differ slightly in future versions, but the core functionality remains the same. To get started, tap Create Account and enter your email address and password. Your password must have at least 8 characters, including an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character. When you're ready, tap Next. We'll send a verification code to your email. If you don't see it right away, double-check that the email shown on this screen is correct, and take a quick look in your spam or junk folder. Once you enter the code, your account will be created and you'll be taken straight into the app. When you first enter the app, you'll see an orange banner at the top of the screen. This banner appears until you subscribe, and indicates that you can only view up to 20 logbook entries. Some features, such as printing your logbook, automatically generating times, and fetching weather, will also be limited. To subscribe, simply tap the banner and choose the full access yearly plan. If your airline has provided you with a redemption code, you can enter it on this screen. Feel free to contact us to check whether your airline participates. Redemption codes apply to the first year of your plan. Once you're ready, tap Subscribe. Then tap OK to confirm. You now have full access to the app. On the main page, you'll see 5 tabs along the bottom of the screen: Logbook, Reports, Options, Tools, and Settings. Starting with the Logbook tab, this is where all your flights are listed, with the most recent entries at the top. You can add a single flight manually by tapping the plus button in the lower right corner, but in most cases, you'll be importing your flights directly from your logbook or roster. Next is the Reports tab. Here you can view a variety of reports that summarize your flying times and other key statistics. The Options tab is the main area for configuring your logbook. This is where most of the setup happens. You'll find settings for time zones and time formats, and you can view or print your logbook in multiple regional formats. You can import your logbook or roster, update your previous totals, and manage all your aircraft, flights, airports, and crew. You can also set your personal details and choose whether the app should automatically add nighttime and instrument time. This tab also includes a powerful bulk editor that lets you modify a range of entries in one step. We'll cover all of these features later in the tutorial. The Tools tab contains helpful utilities from the Aircrew Tools app, including in-flight tools such as the holdover time calculator and more. Finally, the Settings tab lets you access your account details and adjust system preferences, such as forcing night mode. Okay, let's get started by setting a few preferences and importing your logbook and roster. First, tap the Options tab. Let's begin by setting your time zone to match your location. To set your time zone, tap Time Zone, then tap the Time Zone row. In the search field, type the name of a major city in your time zone. Select the city from the list, and your time zone will be updated automatically. Next, go to Aircraft and make sure the aircraft you fly are correctly set up. Search for your aircraft type. If it isn't already in the list, tap the plus button to create a new aircraft type. Once you've selected your aircraft, tap the plus button next to Registrations to enter or edit the registration list. You can enter multiple registrations separated by commas. When you're finished, tap the check mark in the top right corner to save your changes. Then go to My Details and enter your name exactly as you'd like it to appear in your printable logbook. You can also select your default operating capacity. These defaults will be used for any flights where that information isn't already provided. Now we're ready to import your flights. Tap Import Logbook or Roster. Your logbook and roster files should be saved in the Files app on your device. Certain logbook and roster formats are automatically recognized by the app and can be imported directly. If your airline would like their format supported, they can contact us and we'll add full compatibility. If your format isn't automatically recognized, you can still import your data using a CSV or tab-separated file. These can be created easily in any spreadsheet app. And of course, you can always contact us if you need help importing your data. For detailed CSV instructions, refer to the Import tutorial. When you're ready, tap Import Logbook or Roster, choose your file. If your format is recognized, you will be presented with an option to choose that format. Tap the recognized format and the app will extract and import your data. The sync indicator at the top right shows that your data is being synced to the server. Now switch to the Logbook tab. You'll see all your imported flights. Next, let's import your roster. Use the exact same method, but select your roster file instead. If the format is recognized, you will once again be presented with an option to choose that format. Let's go ahead and import the October and November rosters. Once that's done, return to the Logbook tab. Your rostered flights will now appear alongside your existing entries. Once your logbook has been imported, you can also enter your previous totals. These are the hours you accumulated before the digital entries shown in this logbook, usually from a paper logbook that hasn't been digitized yet. Before entering your totals, make sure you have selected your preferred time format. The default is hours and minutes, but you can switch to hours and decimal minutes if you prefer. To change this, go to Options, Time Format, and select the format you want. When that's set, you're ready to enter your previous experience. Tap Previous Totals in Options. You'll see a list of fields for the different time categories used across various logbooks. To simplify what you see, you can choose the region that applies to you. This reduces the list to only the fields required by logbooks in that region. However, it's recommended to leave the selector on All and fill in as many fields as possible. This ensures your totals remain accurate if you change logbook formats later. Once you've entered your times, tap Save in the top right corner. Next, go to Previous Aircraft Totals, also in Options. Here you can enter your aircraft-specific totals for any experience you gained before starting this digital logbook. This is important for generating accurate reports that reflect your experience on type. Select the aircraft type and your operating capacity. Then enter the times. If you operated the same aircraft in more than one capacity, for example, P1 and P2, tap the green Add Capacity button and enter the times for the next roll. To add another aircraft type, tap Add Aircraft, and repeat this for every type you have previous experience on and want included in your totals. Remember, these entries represent experience prior to this digital logbook. All flights recorded inside the app are already included in your totals and reports, so you should not duplicate any of those times here. When you're done, press the Save button in the top right corner. Now let's explore the main interface. On the Logbook tab, you'll see all your flights grouped by month, with the most recent entries at the top. Each month has a header showing your rostered hours, flown hours, payment hours, and your rolling 12-month totals. Each entry displays the date and the time zone you selected earlier. For flights, you'll see both the departure and arrival airports. If an IATA code is available, the 3-letter code is shown. Otherwise, the 4-letter ICAO code is used. For simulator duties, you'll see SIM in the departure airport field, along with a simulator icon. If actual off-block and on-block times haven't been entered yet, the app will display the shed block time just under the airplane icon, assuming scheduled times are set. Once the actual times are set, the flown block time will be shown instead. Below the block time, you'll see your 28-day totals. On the left side of each entry, you may notice a blue vertical strip. This indicates that the flight does not yet have actual off-block and on-block times, and is typically a rostered duty that has not been flown. Once you enter the times, the blue strip disappears. At the top of the page there are two buttons, Search and Scroll. The Search button opens a powerful filter that lets you search your flights by ports, crew, notes, and many other parameters. The Scroll button jumps directly to the duty closest to today. In the bottom right corner, the plus button allows you to manually create a new entry. To create a single event from scratch, tap the plus button in the bottom right. This opens the Add Event page where you can enter all the details relevant to your flight or duty. Start by filling in the fields that apply to your event. Next to flight number, you'll notice a small blue button. Tap this to enter the prefixes of the flight numbers you fly most often. These are usually the 2-letter airline codes. Type the prefixes you want, then tap the check mark in the top right to save them. Now, when you tap the up and down arrows beside the flight number field, you can quickly select a saved prefix. The app remembers this selection, so new entries will automatically use it. Enter the rest of the flight number and press Enter. When you do, the app will check whether you've flown this flight before. If the flight number has multiple sectors, you'll be asked to choose the correct one. If a matching flight exists, the app will automatically fill in the departure and arrival airports and the number of crew defined for that flight. The average out, off, on, and in times from your last 10 flights on that route will be pre-filled automatically. The actual times won't be set until you operate the flight and either update them manually or fetch the real times. This pre-filling simply makes it much quicker to adjust the times later using the spinners. All times should always be entered in UTC. Next, ensure your operating capacity is correct. The default you set in My Details is pre-selected here. Your special duty selection is important if you plan to use the Time Adjustments feature to log only in seat time for flights with relief crew. For that feature to work correctly, make sure you choose Relief, Relief Commander, or Relief Copilot where applicable. Also ensure the number of crew is accurate. We will cover time adjustments later in the tutorial. In the Cockpit Crew section, there is a Me button next to the pilot name. Tapping it automatically inserts the name you defined earlier in My Details. You can add additional crew by tapping Add Cockpit Crew. Continue entering flight details as needed. In the Takeoffs and Landings section, switching the PF/PM toggle automatically sets both takeoffs and landings to 1 for PF, or 0 for PM. You can then fine-tune these values using the plus and minus controls. In the Special section, you can enter additional times such as nighttime and instrument time. This is also where you define whether the duty is a simulator, a fixed simulator, or a ground duty. Entering a simulator time will automatically categorize the event as a simulator duty, and the same applies for fixed simulator or ground duties. Night and instrument times can be entered manually here, or calculated automatically by the app, which we'll cover later. Next is the Certification section. The signature and comment you enter here will appear in the Remarks column of the printable logbook. Below that are the Remarks and Notes fields. Remarks will appear in the printable logbook, while notes are for your reference only and do not appear in the printed version. When you're finished, tap the check mark in the top right to save the event. Once the event is created, you can tap it to view the full details. If this is a flight that has already occurred, you will see a Fetch Flight Details button under the times. Tapping this button will automatically fetch the departure and arrival airports, the actual out, off, on, and in times, and the takeoff and landing runways. So if you plan to use this feature, you only need to enter the flight number and scheduled off block time when creating the flight. Values that you have already defined will not be overwritten. Because this data often relies on A, D, S, B, it's always a good idea to cross-check the fetched data. Pressing Edit in the top right returns you to the editing screen. From the main logbook page, you can also swipe left on an entry and tap Edit or Delete. Since this is just an example event, we'll delete it now. Tap Delete, then Confirm. Now let's have a look at the events in your logbook. Selecting the row of an event will take you to the details for that event. Let's scroll to the 10th of November and select the Hong Kong to Narita flight. At the top, you'll see the flight number. Under that, you'll find the aircraft type, and if it has been defined, the aircraft registration. In this example, the flight hasn't been populated yet, so the registration is blank. Beneath that is an interactive globe showing the Great Circle route from departure to destination. On the left of the globe, you can see the IATA and ICAO codes for the departure airport, along with the current local time and its UTC offset. On the right, the same information is displayed for the arrival airport. Above each airport, and also to the right of the flight number, you'll see a small blue button with an upward arrow. Tapping this reveals additional information about the airport or the flight. Let's tap the button above the Hong Kong departure airport on the left. Here you can see the airport name, its coordinates, the current time, and the UTC offset. Beneath that, you'll find sections for weather, alternates, and notes. Let's tap on Weather. This shows the weather view with the METAR and TAF for Hong Kong. At the top is the current UTC date and time. Below that is the time the weather was last refreshed. In the METAR section, you can see the current METAR and how old it is. The estimated departure time, based on the scheduled off block time, is highlighted in yellow. Beneath that, you'll see the TAF. If the estimated departure time falls within the TAF period, that portion of the TAF will also be highlighted in yellow. In this example, the departure falls outside the TAF period, so nothing is highlighted there. Red text indicates the warmest temperatures in the TAF period, and blue text shows the coldest. Tapping the circular arrow in the top right refreshes the weather. Let's go back to the airport detail page. Under the Weather section, tap Alternates. Here you can set alternates for this airport. Tap Add Alternates, and enter Macau and Shenzhen as alternates for Hong Kong. Only 4-letter ICAO codes can be used, separated by spaces or commas. When you define alternates here, they will appear anywhere this airport appears in the app. So you only need to set alternates for an airport once. For example, if you set alternates for Hong Kong here and later view another flight departing from or arriving at Hong Kong, those alternates will automatically show. Tap the checkmark to save the alternates. Let's go back and open the weather view again. This time, the weather for the alternates is included. Finally, in the airport detail view, there is an Add Notes button at the bottom. Tapping this allows you to add stylized notes for the airport. Now return to the event detail view and add an alternate for the arrival airport. We'll add Haneda as the alternate for Narita. Now let's press the button to the right of the flight number. This opens the flight number detail view. Here you'll see the flight number, the number of crew, and the sector. Some flight numbers operate multiple sectors, so this helps identify which one the event is associated with. The departure and arrival airports are shown on either side of the globe, and beneath that you'll see weather, airports, and notes, similar to the airport detail view. This time, tap on Airports. At the top you'll see the departure and arrival airports, followed by the departure alternates, en route alternates, and arrival alternates. The departure and arrival alternates are the ones we set previously for each airport. You can see Macau and Shenzhen for Hong Kong, and Haneda for Narita. We can add en route alternates for this specific flight number here. Tap Add en route alternates and enter Taipei as an en route alternate. Tapping on any airport in this list will bring up that airport's own detail view. Now that all the airports are defined for this flight, tapping weather will fetch weather for all of them. Keep in mind that a maximum of 10 airports can be fetched at once, so try not to exceed that. If you require additional weather information, you can always use the Meter and TAF tool in the Tools tab, which we will discuss later. In the future, whenever you tap on a flight with this same flight number, all of these airports will already be defined, and you'll be able to fetch the weather for them instantly. You can also add notes here that pertain specifically to this flight number. Tapping Edit at the top right will allow you to edit details about this flight number, such as the number of crew. All flight numbers you've created are listed in the Options Flights section. Let's dismiss this view and go back to the Event Detail page. Below the header, you'll see several sections. Any section can be collapsed by tapping the small arrow on the right side of the header. The sections shown will depend on the information entered for that event. The first section shows the times. The date and times can be toggled between UTC and local. When local is selected, the departure times are shown in the departure airport's time zone, and the arrival times are shown in the arrival airport's time zone. The date shown corresponds to the departure airport's date based on the scheduled or actual off-block time. Scrolling down, you'll see additional sections with relevant event details. If we tap Edit at the top right, we can complete this flight entry once the flight has been operated. Let's tap Registration and type the registration in the search field. If it appears, you can select it. This will automatically set the aircraft type you previously associated with that registration. You should always make sure that the registrations you fly are linked to the correct aircraft type, which can be managed in Options Aircraft. Selecting the registration automatically selects the correct aircraft type. Continue filling in the relevant details. The out, off, on, and in times should already be pre-selected to values very close to what you'll actually set. This is because the app uses the average times from your last 10 flights with the same flight number to pre-fill those fields. Continue entering the actual times. Next, choose the crew. If you've flown with a crew member before, their name will appear. If not, type the name and tap the checkmark. The name you enter here is the name that will appear in the printed logbook. It's recommended to follow the format of last name followed by the initials of the first name. If you fly with two people who share the same name and initials, it's a good idea to slightly differentiate their initials. Continue entering the remaining details. For night and instrument times, you can leave them at 0 and let the app calculate them automatically, or enter them manually. Once you're finished, tap the checkmark at the top right to save your edits. This returns you to the Event Detail view with your updated data. You can now see the total off-block and air times in the Times section. Scrolling down, you can see all the information you've entered. If you select a crew member, you can tap Edit at the top right to add contact details and notes for that person. Here we'll add their first and last name. When we return to the Event Detail view, you'll see their full name displayed beneath their logbook name. Let's go back to the main logbook page. You'll notice that the blue vertical strip on the left has now disappeared, because we've entered both the off-block and on-block times. You'll also see that under the airplane icon, between the departure and arrival airports, the label now shows flown instead of scheduled, along with the actual block time. And in the monthly header, the flown hours for this month have increased by the block time of this flight. Next, select the return sector on the 11th of November, Narita to Hong Kong. This time we'll fetch the flight details by pressing the Fetch Flight Details button in the Times section. You'll notice that this event doesn't yet have an aircraft type, or any out, off, on, or in times, and there are no runway values. Let's press Fetch Flight Details now. You can see that the registration has been filled in, the out, off, on, and in times are now set, and as we scroll down, the takeoff and landing runways are also populated. You will likely still need to edit the entry to fill in details such as takeoffs and landings, crew members, and any additional information, and to verify that the fetched data is accurate. Please remember that the fetch times come from industry-leading ADS-B data, which is generally very accurate but not perfect. Occasionally, the data may be missing or incorrect, so it's always a good idea to cross-check the results. Now that we've imported our flights, learned how the Logbook interface works, and seen how to add, edit, and delete events, let's explore the Options tab. This is where all of the app's configuration takes place. At the top of the Options menu, you'll see Time Zone and Time Format, which we covered earlier. Time Zone sets the time zone for the entire app. This determines the date shown on the main Logbook page, as well as the dates used for your rolling annual totals, 28-day limits, and other totals. Time Format lets you choose whether your printable logbook and inputs use decimal minutes or the traditional hours and minutes format. Further down, you'll find Time Adjustments. These are used when you want to log only in seat time rather than full block time for flights operated with relief crew. At the top of this screen, there's a brief explanation and a Learn More button, which gives you a detailed description of how these settings work. For time adjustments, a reference time is calculated by subtracting the takeoff landing allowance from the total block time. If a control seat is not occupied for takeoff and landing, meaning the duty is set to relief or the operating capacity is P2X, then 2/3 of the reference time is counted for 3 crew operations, and half is counted for 4 crew operations. If a control seat is occupied for takeoff and landing, the takeoff landing allowance is added back. To use time adjustments, begin by switching on the main Adjust Augmented Crew Times toggle. Once that's enabled, turn on the toggles for any operating capacities where you want the app to log only in seat time instead of full block time. If you'd like nighttime and instrument time to be adjusted using the same ratio, you can enable those toggles as well. At the bottom of the screen, set the climb-descent allowance you want to use. If your goal is simply to split the entire block time in half for 4 crew flights, or into 2/3 for 3 crew flights, you can set the climb-descent allowance to 0. The next item in the Options menu is Port Format. This setting controls how airport identifiers appear in your printable logbook, either in 4-letter ICAO format or in the 3-letter IATA. A little further down, you'll find FlightAware Sync. When this is turned on, each time the app is opened or refreshed, it scans your flights for any that are missing off-block and on-block times, and automatically updates them using ADS-B data from FlightAware. Flights older than 10 days will be retrieved automatically, up to 100 credits per month, with credits replenished at the start of the next month. Flights within the past 10 days are fetched automatically when this switch is on, and do not use any credits. And remember, regardless of whether this switch is turned on, you can always fetch times manually by tapping Fetch Flight Details in the Event Details page, as we covered earlier. If you'd like a deeper explanation of how this feature works, tap the Learn More button. This feature relies on industry-leading ADS-B data, which is generally very accurate and works reliably in most cases. However, there may occasionally be missing or incorrect data, so it's always a good idea to cross-check any automatically fetched times, just to be sure everything is correct. Next, let's take a look at the printable logbook. This section lets you view your logbook in the traditional printed format. You can choose from several regional layouts using the Format drop-down. Let's switch from the FAA format to the Hong Kong format. You can zoom in for a closer look, or simply rotate your device to landscape to view more of the page at once. To move between pages, you can swipe normally or use the arrow buttons at the bottom. The double arrows will take you directly to the first or last page of your logbook. On the bottom left, you'll find the font selection button. Changing this affects the font used for your entered events. Headers remain unchanged. On the bottom right, the color picker lets you customize the text color of your content. When you're ready to export or print your logbook, tap the printer icon in the top right. You'll see several layout options. You can choose between side-by-side pages or single-page layout. Select your paper size, A4, letter, or the original logbook size, and adjust your margins based on how you plan to bind the pages. You can also choose whether to show visible margin lines and whether to include a cover page identifying the logbook format. Once everything is set, tap the check mark at the top. Depending on the size of your logbook, generating the PDF may take up to about 30 seconds. When it's ready, you'll see the full high-resolution PDF, which you can zoom into or scroll through. To export or print it, tap the Share button in the top right. From here, you can save the PDF, print it, or share it through any available app. Returning to the options list, the next item is Customize Columns. This lets you choose what additional information appears in the remarks column of your printable logbook, beyond the remarks you've entered yourself. You can include the departure and arrival airports, the flight number, or both, so you can tailor the printed logbook exactly the way you prefer. The next section in the Options menu covers importing and exporting data. Anytime you want to import a previous digital logbook or your roster, select Import Logbook or Roster. You can tap the Learn More button for a detailed explanation of the importing process. When you're ready, tap Import Logbook or Roster, then choose the file from the Files app on your device. Let's start by selecting the logbook file on the right. If your airline's logbook or roster format has already been submitted to us and configured for the app, the format will be detected automatically, and you'll see an option to select it, just like in the Getting Started section. Here you can see the logbook format has been detected, and the first option shown is CX, corresponding to the recognized format. We selected this earlier when importing our logbook. Recognized files are usually text files or PDFs. If you work for a major airline or use a common rostering system, feel free to contact us so we can configure your format for automatic detection. Now let's cancel this and select a recognized roster format. Once again, the format is detected and we're presented with an option to select it, just like before. Since we demonstrated this process earlier, we'll cancel again. The app will also accept exported data from several popular logbook apps, as long as the file is exported as a CSV or tab-separated file. Import issues with third-party logbook apps are usually related to date formats, which may change depending on the exporting app or your device settings. If that happens, just contact us, and we'll help you import the data. If your format is not recognized automatically, you can still import your data easily using a CSV or tab-separated file you create in Excel, Numbers, or any spreadsheet app. The first row must contain the column names, and the second row must begin the data. Also ensure that the date format is day, month, year in that order. Any day, month, year style is acceptable, whether you use dashes or slashes. Let's try that now. We will switch to the Files app and tap on the example CSV logbook file. Here we can preview the file and see that the first row contains the column names and the second row has the data. For this example, we only have one entry. Notice that the date in the first column is in day, month, year format. It can use any separators, as long as the order is correct. Now let's go back to the app and select this file to import. Because the file is not recognized automatically, the app opens the Match Columns page. On this screen, You can match the columns from your file to the Aircrew logbook fields. You'll see all the columns from your input file. When you select one, the full list of Aircrew logbook columns appears. Note that the column name you are matching appears as the title of the current page at the top in large font. Under each field name, you'll see the acceptable data formats. Tapping the Info button gives you even more detail. As long as the date is in the correct format, the remaining fields will almost always be accepted, because they allow for a wide range of input styles. Tap Date to match the date column from your file to the corresponding Aircrew logbook field. You'll see the match appear in blue to the right. Then continue matching each column. The search bar at the bottom is very helpful for filtering the list. And make sure to choose the correct airport type, ICAO or IATA, and avoid mixing them. This is very important for accurate time zone tracking, mapping, and several other calculations throughout the app. Once all columns are matched, press Done in the top right corner. Your data will be imported into the app. If we go back to the logbook page, we can now see the imported entry at the top. Since this is only an example, let's delete it. Of course, your real logbook will likely contain hundreds of entries. If you encounter any issues importing your logbook or roster, please contact us. We're always happy to help. Continuing with the Options menu, the next item is Export Data. Select this to export your entire logbook. Tap Share Logbook CSV file. Once all of your events have been extracted, a share sheet will appear, allowing you to save or share your file. Let's save it to the Files app. This creates a CSV file in your device's storage. Now return to Options and continue down the list. The next two items, Previous Totals and Previous Aircraft Totals, were covered earlier in the Getting Started section, so we'll move past them here. The next group in Options contains aircraft, flights, ports, and crew. Let's begin with aircraft. Here you'll see a list of aircraft types. The identifier appears at the top, with the manufacturer and type shown below. The identifier is what you'll see in your logbook. You can use the search bar to find a specific aircraft. Let's select a 35K. This page shows key details for the aircraft. At the top, you'll see the aircraft identifier and the full type name. Below that are the manufacturer and the number of engines. The number of engines determines whether time counts as single engine or multi-engine in regions where that information is required. Most importantly, this is where you enter all registrations for each aircraft you fly. Tap the plus button next to the registrations header. Here you can edit existing registrations or add new ones. You should add registrations for all aircraft you operate. In some cases, these may already be pre-filled if your airline's configurations have been added to the app. Let's return to the aircraft list and close the search bar. At the bottom right, you'll see a plus button. This is how you create a custom aircraft type if yours is not already listed. The identifier is required and will appear in your logbook. The remaining fields are optional. Make sure you choose the correct number of engines and add registrations at the bottom. Back in the aircraft list, in the top right corner, you'll see a button with 3 dots. Tap this and 2 options appear: Update Aircraft and Learn More. The Learn More button gives a detailed explanation. The Update Aircraft option goes through each logbook entry and assigns the aircraft type based on its registration, overriding any previous aircraft types. Before using this feature, make sure all registrations have been added to the correct aircraft types. At the top of the aircraft list, you can also switch between Mine, your custom aircraft types, and all aircraft types. We haven't created any custom aircraft, so the Mine list is empty. Now return to Options and select Flights. This shows all flights extracted from your logbook. Flights are extracted when a flight number and a valid pair of IATA ports are provided. If a flight number has multiple sectors, each sector appears here. Let's select the first flight in the list, CX-100. At the top you'll see the flight number, number of crew, and sector. Sector only matters when a flight number appears more than once. The number of crew is important if you're using time adjustments to log in seat time instead of full block time. 3 crew and 4 crew operations use different ratios. Below that, you'll find an interactive globe showing the Great Circle route between the departure and arrival airports. To the left of the globe is the IATA and ICAO code of the departure airport, along with the current local time and UTC offset. The right side shows the same information for the arrival airport. Beneath the globe, you'll see weather, airports, and notes. These were introduced earlier, but let's revisit airports for a moment. Here you'll see the departure and arrival airports, followed by the departure alternates, en route alternates, and arrival alternates. Departure and arrival alternates are set directly on the port itself and appear anywhere that port is used throughout the app. En route alternates are defined here for this specific flight number. For example, Sydney's departure alternates, Melbourne and Adelaide, appear here automatically, as do Hong Kong's arrival alternates, Macau and Shenzhen. The en route alternate previously set for this flight is Manila. To change this, tap Edit next to en route alternates. Returning to the flight detail page, select Weather. Weather will be fetched for all relevant airports, the departure and arrival ports, the departure, en route, and arrival alternates. Weather page details were covered earlier in the Explore Events section. Below Weather and Airports is Notes, where you can store notes specific to this flight number. If you tap the Edit button in the top right corner, you can modify this flight, including the number of crew. However, for bulk updates using Edit Range, covered later, may be easier. Back in the flights list, we can tap the plus button in the bottom right to create a new flight by entering the flight number, ports, and number of crew. Finally, tapping the 3-dot button in the top right corner reveals 2 options: Extract Flights and Learn More. By tapping Learn More, we can see a detailed explanation of the Extract Flights button. Extract Flights analyzes each logbook entry and adds to the flight list based on flight numbers and ports. This is rarely needed because the app does this automatically whenever flights are created or imported. Now let's move on to ports. You'll find thousands of ports already included, which will cover nearly all use cases. You can also create a custom port if needed. Let's search for HKG and select Hong Kong. The port detail page begins with a map. Below it, you'll see the airport name, its location, coordinates, local time, and UTC offset. The weather, alternates, and notes sections work exactly as they do elsewhere. Weather fetches the meter and TAF for the port and any alternates you've set. Under alternates, you can edit the list just as we did earlier. Notes allow you to store stylized notes for this port. Return to the ports list and close the search bar. At the bottom right is the plus button for adding a custom port. For a custom port, the IATA and ICAO codes, coordinates, and time zone are required. Coordinates are essential for accurate nighttime calculations and map displays, and the time zone is critical for correctly interpreting flight times. When you're finished, tap the checkmark button to add the port. Finally, let's look at crew. At the top of the crew list is a 3-position selector: all crew, pilots, and cabin crew. If a crew member is assigned as cockpit crew, they'll appear under pilots and all. If assigned as cabin crew, they'll appear under cabin and all. We currently have no cabin crew saved. Let's select the first pilot from the list. In the crew details view, you'll see the display name at the top. This is the name that appears in your logbook and acts as the crew member's main identifier. It's recommended to follow the pattern last name, followed by initials in capital letters. Below that is the full name, followed by either a profile photo or initials if no photo is provided. Tap Edit in the top right to modify the crew entry. Here you can add additional details such as a profile picture, phone number, email, and notes. You can also tap the plus button at the bottom right of the crew list to create a new crew entry. Continuing with options, The next item is My Details. Here you can set your default logbook display name and operating capacity. These defaults will automatically be used whenever no other value is defined. For example, if you save a flight and set the operating capacity to P1, but don't specify the commander name, this default will appear as the commander name. It is recommended to use self in uppercase letters, or your last name followed by initials, also in uppercase. The operating capacity you select here will also be used for any new flights where no operating capacity has been defined. Below that is the signature area. These signatures are used in certain regional logbook formats, where a pilot's signature is required on each page. The signature can be drawn directly or selected from your photos. If you choose a photo, please make sure the background is white. The next item in options is P2X options. This is only relevant for the Hong Kong region, where P2X times are used. This toggle determines whether the number of sectors in reports will include sectors where you operated in the P2X capacity. Now we move on to night and instrument times. For night times, the app can automatically calculate the night duration for each sector when both off-block and on-block times are provided, along with valid coordinates for the departure and arrival airports. All default airports already include those coordinates. To have the app automatically set night times whenever you import or create flights, simply turn the toggle on. If you want to retroactively apply night times to your entire logbook, press the Update Night Times button, which we will do now. This evaluates all entries with valid times and updates their night time accordingly. It will also set night takeoff or night landing when those occur during the night period. Please note that this will overwrite any previous nighttime entries. When we return to the options screen, you can see the spinner in the upper right corner showing that the updates are syncing to the server. Next, select Instrument Times. Here you can turn on the toggle to allow instrument times to be set automatically each time you import or save a flight, as long as off-block and on-block times are available. The amount of instrument time is based on a percentage that you choose below. If takeoff and landing times are set, that percentage will apply to airtime. If only off-block and on-block times are set, the percentage will apply to block time. Similar to night times, you can press Update Instrument Times to retroactively apply this to your entire logbook. Again, this will override any previous instrument time entries. Let's return to Options and observe the sync indicator in the top right corner. Now let's move on to the Edit Range option. This is a powerful editing tool that can save you a significant amount of time when you need to update certain parameters after importing data. Inside Edit Range, you can tap Learn More to see a full explanation. You begin by selecting the parameter you want to edit. Depending on the parameter type, the appropriate field will appear so you can enter the new value. Next, select the date range you want applied to the edit. By default, the date range is set from the first entry in your logbook to the last, which includes every entry. Then you can add filters. If you use more than one filter, you must choose whether you want them combined using and, or. And means all filter conditions must be met, while or means that matching any one of them will include the entry. Let's try an example. We want to set the number of landings to 1 for each PF sector. First, let's set landings as the parameter we want to edit. When you press the Select button to the right of Set, you will see a list of all the parameters you can modify using Edit Range. You can scroll down to see more parameters. Once we select landings, we can see a value picker appear. Let's set the value to 1. Since we want this applied to all flights, we leave the date range as the default. Now let's add a filter for sectors where PF or PM is set to PF. Since we are using only one filter, the and/or choice does not matter. When we press the checkmark at the top, all PF entries will have the number of landings set to 1. You may then want to set takeoffs the same way. Please remember this will overwrite existing landing values. So if you have training entries with multiple landings that you want to preserve, you may wish to narrow the date range or apply different filters. Now let's try another edit, this time using multiple filters. We want to set the number of crew to 4 for all long-haul flights. Normally, the number of crew is set automatically based on the flight number when you create a flight. But after importing your data, you may need to edit this for in-seat rest time calculations. Instead of updating each entry manually, we do it here. Let's select number of crew and set it to 4, and again leave the date range at the default. In this example, flights to New York, Toronto, or Dallas are long-haul with 4 crew. So we add filters for these airports. We are going to add 2 filters. One for the from IATA airports, and another for the to IATA airports. Since we are looking for either of these to match, let's set the and/or selector to or. Let's select from IATA and type the IATA codes for those cities separated by commas. Then we tap the Add Filter button to add another filter. And set the to IATA with the same airports. When we press the check mark at the top right, all matching entries will be updated. Back in Options, you can again see the sync indicator. We used only 3 airports for this example, but you may add as many as you need. And you can repeat the same steps for 3 crew airports. Finally, the last item in Options is Delete All Entries. This is a destructive action that will permanently delete all entries from your logbook. It cannot be undone, and all your data will be lost. If you choose Delete All Entries, a confirmation field will appear where you must type the word delete to proceed. Otherwise, press Cancel. Now let's have a look at the Reports tab. This area provides several different ways to visualize your time totals. At the very top is your grand total, which represents your total time to date. It includes everything in your logbook, along with any previous totals you may have defined earlier in Options. Let's start with total times. At the top of the screen, there is a date range selector. The default range goes from the date of your very first logbook entry to the date of your most recent entry. As long as the from date matches the first item in your logbook, your previous totals will be included. If you change the from date to a later value, those previous totals are no longer added. The Reset button at the bottom right of the date range will restore the first event to last event dates. Below that are several filters. The airline filter lets you select one of the flight number prefixes you defined earlier when creating entries. Once selected, the totals shown will apply only to flights with flight numbers beginning with that prefix. Below that, you can add an aircraft type filter as well, although later we will see a dedicated aircraft section that provides more detailed totals by aircraft. Once the date range and filters are set, the totals appear below. The first section displays your overall totals including day and night times. The next section shows totals by operating capacity. Further down are sector totals, along with takeoffs, landings, and approaches. Continuing down the page, you will find additional totals under the Special and Other sections. Let's go back to Reports and select Monthly Reports. Here the app shows your totals month by month. As you scroll, you'll see the yearly totals represented graphically in a header at the top of each year's months, along with a list of each month in that year. At the top of the screen is a drop-down whose selection controls both the graph and the number displayed to the right of each month. By default, it shows total time, but a wide range of parameters can be selected. For example, choosing landings will change the graph to display landings per month, and the numbers on the right side of each row will also change accordingly. Let's switch back to total time. Tapping any month will open that month's totals, presented in the same familiar layout we saw earlier. Here you will see all of the totals for that month with the month and year as the title of the page. Let's go back and select Yearly Reports. At the top is a horizontally scrolling graphical view showing your totals for each year since your very first entry. Just like with monthly reports, the drop-down at the top lets you select which parameter is shown graphically and to the right of each year's row. Tapping a year opens a page with the totals for that year. Now select Aircraft Reports. This screen shows the total time flown on each aircraft type. Once again, the parameter used in the graph and on the right side of each row can be changed using the drop-down at the top. If you have many aircraft types logged, the graph scrolls horizontally. Tapping any aircraft row will display all totals for that aircraft in the standard summary format. The next section is Rolling Annual Totals. These totals help you track not only your current and past 12-month limits, but also future ones, allowing you to anticipate your roster requirements as you approach your maximum hours. The app calculates these values 1 year into the future. As you scroll down the list, you'll see the current month highlighted in blue. For each month, the value shown on the right represents the total block time from exactly 1 year prior, up to the end of that month. Each row therefore reflects a complete rolling 12-month period, ending with the month displayed. Actual times are used whenever they exist, and scheduled times are used when actuals have not yet been set. Now let's have a look at the Tools tab. This tab contains a number of tools from the Aircrew Tools app that assist with tasks carried out during the course of a flight. They are organized into 2 sections, General and Weather. The first item in the General section is Metric Levels. This tool converts metric levels to feet when operating in and out of China and Mongolia. In the top right, you will see a button shaped like an eye. This is used to show or hide the feet conversions. After tapping the eye button, we can now see the feet values. At the top of the page there is a direction selector, which allows you to filter the levels according to the direction of flight: west, east, or all directions. Also in the top right is a settings button that lets you turn the auto scroll feature on or off. With auto scroll enabled, selecting a level will automatically scroll the list, so the selected item is at the top during descent or at the bottom during climb, making it easier to select the next level. To determine the direction of the scroll, set the climb or descent selector first. If we switch the selector to descent and tap a level, you will see it highlight and move to the top. Continuing down the list, it becomes very easy to select each successive level during descent. Switching to climb places the selected level at the bottom, so the next higher level is easy to choose. To deselect a level, just tap it again. Hiding the feet conversions can help prevent errors by avoiding the temptation to tap an incorrect feet altitude when cleared to a metric level, providing an extra margin of safety. The next tool is the Curfew tool. This is used to calculate the earliest or latest off-block and takeoff times needed to arrive before or after an arrival airport curfew. Let's first select the departure and arrival airports. Use the search window at the bottom of the page to find the airport, then select it. Once you select both airports, you will see a time selector at the top that allows you to display all times in either the departure airport's time zone, the arrival airport's time zone, or UTC. You can see the present time in each time zone just beneath the selector. Next, choose whether the curfew is a landing curfew or a parking curfew. For a parking curfew, we will also set a taxi-in time. In this example, we have a parking curfew to park after 5:30 London Heathrow local time. So we will set the selectors to parking curfew and arrive after. Since the curfew time is 5:30 local time, let's first set the time selector to the destination airport. Then set the curfew time to 5:30. You will see the London Heathrow label to the left of the time because the selector is set to that time zone. Now set the taxi-out time, taxi-in time, and flight time. Once those values are entered, the earliest off-block time and earliest takeoff time will appear at the top. You can switch the time selector to UTC or to departure time if that is more useful when planning the departure. Let's now look at the Times tool. This is extremely useful when crossing time zones on long flights. You can see the current UTC time near the top along with a target time selector to its right, which is in the time zone of that row. Above the UTC row is a countdown to the target time. Below the UTC row is a blue button that shows the time at a location close to your current position. For this to work, your GPS must determine your location accurately. The coordinates of the location will be shown under this time. The app will then find the closest airport in your database to that location and display the local time there. In the top right is a plus button used to add any airport. When adding a port, you can swipe on it to pin it so it appears at the top next time. Let's select Hong Kong and pin it. Next, let's choose Los Angeles. Note that Hong Kong appears at the top as we pinned it previously. You will now see a row for Hong Kong and for Los Angeles showing the current local time, taking into account daylight savings if applicable. The target time selector for that row is in that region's time zone. Changing the target time in any row updates the target time in all other rows to the same time in that row's time zone. So the countdown reflects the time remaining to that target moment, no matter which row you are viewing. For example, setting the target to the landing time in the UTC row will let you see that landing time converted automatically for any other time zone you've added in that row's target selector. The countdown will show the time remaining until landing. You can rearrange rows using the Edit button at the top or by holding and dragging them. Now let's look at the rest calculator. This tool is used for in-flight rest on long-haul flights with relief crew. It is always recommended to tap the trash button in the top right when planning a new rest. This clears the previous plan and automatically sets the rest start time to the current time and the landing time to 12 hours later to make selection easier. Tap the settings icon in the top right. Here you can set and adjust the definitions for the different 4-part rest splits. L stands for long and S stands for short. So SSLL means a short, short, long, long pattern. For each rest split, you can decide whether you want to set the length of the short period or the long period. Let's define the SSLL pattern by setting the short time to 2 hours. This is the default. This yields 2 hours, 2 hours, and then the remaining rest split equally between the last 2 periods. If instead we set the long period, the 2 long periods would be fixed, for example 4 hours each, and the short periods would be calculated automatically. At the top is the lead-in time for alerts if you have rest alerts enabled. This determines how long before the end of your rest period the alert should sound. Let's dismiss settings and return to the rest plan. Now set the rest start time and landing time. The rest start time is when the first group goes down for their rest. The landing time is self-explanatory. Next, set the rest end to landing time, which is shown in green. The total rest time will be the time from the rest start time to the landing time, minus this value in green. Now select the rest plan from the drop-down and choose the SSLL plan we defined. Because we set the short time to 2 hours, the pattern is now 2 hours, 2 hours, 4:35 and 4:35. While sliders are rarely used, you can move them manually if you want to fine-tune. To the right is the rest end time in orange and the countdown to that time. Tapping the alarm button sets an alarm for that time or for the lead-in offset you chose. This will appear on your lock screen and sound at the correct time. On the home screen, you'll also see a live activity showing the countdown. If you want to cancel the alarm, press stop here or turn off the alarm toggle in the rest plan. Let's press stop to cancel it. Back in the rest plan, note the lock button at the top. This locks the plan and turns red so you don't accidentally change the sliders. If things are not responding, check if the lock is engaged. Next to the lock is the QR code generator. This allows other crew members to scan the rest plan to their device if they are using this app or the Aircrew Tools app. Any scanned rest is locked by default, and you can unlock it if needed. Always verify scans for accuracy. To scan a rest, tap the button to the right of the QR selector. Please note that the camera app cannot be used to scan rest plans. It must be done through the app. Now let's move on to the weather tools. The first item here is the Meter TAF tool. This tool fetches meters and TAFs for up to 10 airports by entering their 4-letter ICAO codes. You can also define an ETA, and if the TAF is in standard format, the relevant segment will be highlighted. At the top, you can set the ETA, and tapping the blue reset button returns it to the current time. Below that, you can enter up to 10 ports separated by spaces or commas. Once valid entries are made, the blue circular arrow in the top right becomes active. Tap it to fetch or update the weather. In the TAF section, if your ETA falls within the TAF period, that segment will be highlighted in yellow. Let's change the ETA to now to demonstrate this. Highest temperatures in the TAF are marked in red, and lowest in blue, if the TAF provides that information. The next tool is the Holdover Times tool. This helps you quickly determine your lower and upper holdover times. You can choose whether the source is FAA or Transport Canada. Use the selector to switch regions. The source section at the bottom updates to show the appropriate document. These documents usually update annually in early August. Once the region is selected, you can fetch the meter if needed, but remember that ATIS should be used for temperature and precipitation whenever available. Select the temperature and precipitation. The rest of the display depends on what precipitation type you selected. If you choose snow, snow grains, or snow pellets, as in this example, you will need to indicate day or night and set your visibility in meters or statute miles. We'll leave it on day and select statute miles. Now choose the visibility. The precipitation intensity will be shown. Here, it is very light. The snowfall intensity guidance table is included for your reference. Notes appear at the bottom of the table. Now select the fluid in use. There is a search field at the bottom if required. After selecting the fluid, choose the mix ratio and whether the flaps or slats are deployed during de-icing or anti-icing. Next, select the holdover start time, either in UTC or local. The holdover tables appear at the bottom for reference, and you can zoom for a better look. Notes appear at the bottom of the table. Below the holdover table image, you will find the applicable cautions. If valid holdover times exist, they will be shown in the header at the top. If there are no valid times for your combination, you will see dashes. Pressing Start Timer will start the countdown. The Allowance Times tool works similarly to the Holdover Times tool, but is specific to ice pellet precipitation. Select the temperature and precipitation first. We will assume the ATIS indicated light ice pellets. You can select the precipitation according to the corresponding precipitation code on the ATIS. Next, select one of the 3 available fluids. Then choose whether flaps and slats are deployed. Finally, set the allowance start time. The allowance chart and notes appear below and can be selected and zoomed. The source document can again be switched between FAA and Transport Canada. Pressing Start Timer will begin the countdown. The next tool is Cold Weather Altimetry. This is used to correct altitudes when operating into airports with temperatures at ISA -15 or colder, which corresponds to 0 degrees or lower at sea level. Note the cautions shown at the bottom. First, select the airport for meter reference, though ATIS temperature should always be used during operations. Next, choose feet or meters as your reference unit, and fill in the aerodrome elevation and temperature. The APV toggle determines whether the final approach fix altitude should be adjusted. On APV approaches, no correction is required for the final approach fix. Once you enter the aerodrome elevation and temperature, several default fields will appear. Fill in the chart altitudes on the left, and corrected altitudes will appear on the right. Rounding rules vary, so identical entries may produce different corrections depending on the field. Superscripts correspond to cautions below. You can add a custom row by pressing the Add Custom Row button. Give your custom row a name and tap OK. You can rearrange rows by long pressing and dragging, or using the Edit button at the top. Rows can be deleted by swiping left on them and tapping the Delete button. The Trash button at the top right of the page clears all entries and restores all custom rows, which remain hidden until elevation and temperature are set again. Next is the Crosswind tool. This calculates crosswind, headwind, or tailwind components. Enter the runway heading, then enter the wind below. After entering wind, a windsock will appear, and the crosswind and headwind or tailwind values will be displayed. Crosswind and tailwind values are rounded up to the nearest knot, and headwind values are rounded down. Once you've entered the wind, tap the wind entry field to lock it. Tap again to unlock and change it. To reset the wind or make selecting another runway heading easier, tap the Trash button in the top right corner. The final tool is Weather Abbreviations. This contains a large number of weather report decodes used in meters and TAFs. You can scroll through the list or enter any code in the search bar to see its meaning. The list is extensive and always growing. If you come across a code that is not included, please email us so we can update the list. Now let's move over to the Settings tab. This section provides access to your account details, system-related options, privacy information, terms and conditions, and ways to contact us. It also includes links to tutorials and the ability to sign out of your account. First, let's select Account. Here you can update your email address, change your password, or delete your account. Tapping the email address row shows your registered email along with a green checkmark to confirm it has been verified. From here, you can tap Change Email Address to enter a new one. A confirmation code will be sent to that new address before the change takes effect. To update your password, tap Change Password. You'll be asked to enter your current password followed by the new one. If you've forgotten your password entirely, you can use the Forgot Password link on the sign-in screen instead. The next setting is Delete Account. If you choose to delete your account, tap the Delete Account button. This is a permanent and irreversible action. All of your data will be removed, and your account will be closed. A confirmation alert will appear, and you will need to type Delete to proceed. It's strongly recommended to export your data before deleting your account. Below Account is the Subscription section. If you're not subscribed yet, you can start a subscription here. If you already have an active subscription, this screen will show your renewal or expiry date. Next is the toggle for dark mode. When it's off, the app follows your device's system appearance. When it's on, the app stays in dark mode at all times. Let's try that now. The app has been fully designed to work in both light and dark mode, and in any device orientation. Continuing down, you'll find the app version along with links to privacy information and terms and conditions. The Contact option opens your Mail app with a message addressed to us. There is also a section with links to all our tutorials. And finally, at the bottom, you can sign out of your account by tapping Sign Out and confirming. That brings us to the end of this walkthrough of Aircrew Logbook. We hope it has helped you understand the features and tools available to you, and how the app can support you throughout your flying duties. As the app continues to evolve, new features and improvements will be added, and updated tutorials will follow. If you ever have questions, feedback, or feature requests, please feel free to contact us directly through the app or by email. We're always here to help, and your input plays a big part in shaping future updates. Thank you for watching and for using Aircrew Logbook.